The morning alarm echoed through the dormitory halls of Nexus 7, the massive space station that housed the Galactic Engineering Academy. Wu Jin rolled out of his narrow bunk and stretched his arms above his head. Around him, creatures from dozens of worlds began their daily routines. The tall, blue-skinned Altarians moved with graceful steps. The rock-like granite people made heavy sounds as they walked. The small, quick flicker beings darted between the larger species like tiny lightning. Bolts, Wu Jin was one of only 4 humans at the Academy. Most aliens still thought of humans as a young and simple race. They had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. Many alien professors treated human students like children who were trying to play with grown-up tools. Another fun day ahead, Sora said as she joined Wu Jin in the hallway. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She carried her design pad under one arm and a cup of synthetic coffee in her other hand. Sora was studying to become an architect. She wanted to design buildings that could work on different worlds with different gravity and weather. Jinho and Hana met them at the transport tube that would take them to the engineering building. Jinho was always covered in small cuts and burns from working with machines. He loved to take things apart and put them back together in better ways. Hana was different from the rest. She studied how living things worked with their environment. The other 3 sometimes forgot she was an engineer too, because she spent so much time with plants and soil samples. The 4 humans had become close friends during their first year at the Academy. They had to stick together when other species made jokes about the primitive mammals or the hairless apes. Some aliens were kind and curious about human culture. Others acted like humans were pets that had learned a few tricks. Professor Velthar was definitely in the second group. The crystalline being stood nearly 3 meters tall in the main lecture hall. His body was made of what looked like living diamond. Light passed through him and split into rainbow colors that danced on the walls. When he moved, he made soft ringing sounds like wind chimes. He was beautiful to look at, but his voice was cold and sharp. "Today we will conduct a practical examination," Professor Velthar announced. His voice carried easily through the large room. "You will be transported to Kappa 9, a lifeless moon in the outer rim. Your task is simple. Build a shelter that can protect 1 person for 7 days. The alien students whispered among themselves. This sounded easy enough. Most of them had done survival training on their home worlds. Professor Velthar continued. You will have 72 standard hours. You may use only materials found on the moon itself. No tools except your basic academy kit. No help from your ship's computer. No communication with the Academy until the test period ends. Kixara, an insectoid student with 4 arms and compound eyes, raised one of her clawed hands. Professor, what are the grading criteria? Survival, Professor Velthar said simply. If your shelter keeps you alive for 7 days, you pass. Style and comfort mean nothing. This is about basic engineering skills and survival instinct. The professor's crystal eyes seemed to focus on the 4 humans sitting together in the middle of the room. Some species may find this more challenging than others. Those who come from soft worlds with easy lives may discover that real engineering requires more than reading books and solving equations. Wu Jin felt heat rise in his cheeks. The professor was clearly talking about humans. Earth was not a soft world. Humans had survived ice ages, floods, earthquakes, and wars. They had built cities in deserts and in frozen wastelands. They had learned to grow food in space and create air from nothing. Sora put her hand on Wu Jin's arm. She could see he was getting angry. Getting angry at professors was not a good idea, especially professors who already thought humans were not smart enough to be at the academy. I have studied the survival records of all major galactic species, Professor Velthar went on. Most manage to create basic lean-to structures using rocks and vegetation. The granite people excel at stone construction. The flicker beings are clever with woven materials. The Altarians have excellent planning abilities. He paused and looked directly at the humans again. Newer species often struggle with resource identification and basic construction techniques. Do not be disappointed if you find the task more difficult than expected. There is no shame in learning your limitations. Dean Morgax entered the lecture hall at that moment. The reptilian administrator was twice as wide as he was tall. His thick tail dragged behind him as he walked to the front of the room. Unlike Professor Velthar, Dean Morgax had always been fair to the human students. "The transport ships are ready," Dean Morgax announced. "Each student will be dropped at a different location on Kappa 9. You will not see each other until the test period ends. Remember, this is an individual assessment." The students began to gather their things. Basic academy kits included a small knife, a fire starter, a water purification tablet, and emergency medical supplies. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would make the test too easy. Wu Jin stood up with his friends. "Well, this should be interesting." "Interesting is one word for it," Jin Ho said. He was checking his kit to make sure everything was there. "I wonder what this moon is like." Hana was reading data on her tablet. Kappa 9 is mostly rock and ice, no atmosphere. We'll be wearing environment suits the whole time. Temperature ranges from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius. No plant life, no animal life, no obvious water sources. "Sounds lovely," Sora said with a smile. "Like a vacation resort." Other students were talking nervously among themselves. The granite people seemed confident. Rock and ice were materials they understood well. The flicker beings were moving quickly, already making plans. The Altarians were discussing construction techniques in their musical language. Professor Velthar moved through the groups of students like a walking light show. He stopped near each group to offer advice or warnings. When he reached the humans, his crystal face showed what might have been amusement. "Perhaps you should work together to share ideas," he suggested. "Four minds might accomplish what one cannot." "The test is individual," Wu Jin said politely. "You just told us we cannot work together." "Indeed. How unfortunate for your species. Humans are known for their pack behavior, are they not? Like primitive wolves working together to bring down prey too large for one wolf alone." Sora stepped forward before Wu Jin could say something that would get them all in trouble. "We understand the rules, Professor. Individual assessment. 72 hours. Survival shelter." Professor Velthar made a sound like crystal bells laughing. "Yes, individual assessment. We shall see how well humans perform when they cannot rely on group cooperation. Perhaps this will provide valuable data about your species' actual capabilities." The professor moved away to terrorize other students. Dean Morgax appeared beside the four humans. "Do not let him upset you," the reptilian dean said quietly. "Professor Velthar believes crystalline beings are the most advanced species in the galaxy. He thinks everyone else is primitive. Prove him wrong." "We will," Wu Jin said. "Good. The transport leaves in 1 hour. Use the time to prepare mentally. Kappa 9 is not a friendly place, but it has resources if you know how to find them. Think like engineers, not like survivors." Dean Morgax walked away, leaving the four humans alone. "Think like engineers. Hana repeated. I like that. Me too, said Sora. Survivors just try to stay alive. Engineers solve problems. Jinho grinned. And we're very good at solving problems. Wu Jin looked at his three friends. They were about to face their biggest challenge yet. Not just surviving on a dead moon, but proving that humans belonged at the academy. Proving that they were more than primitive mammals playing with advanced technology. Let's go show the galaxy what humans can do, he said. The transport ship shuddered as it entered Kappa 9's thin atmosphere. Through the small window, Wu Jin could see a gray and brown landscape of rocks and ice. The moon looked dead and unwelcoming, perfect for a survival test that was designed to make humans look stupid. The ship's pilot, a mechanical being called a constructor, spoke through the communication system. Dropping human student Wu Jin at coordinates 127.4 by 88.9. You have 71 hours and 43 minutes remaining. Emergency beacon activates automatically if life signs fail. Good luck, organic being. Wu Jin felt the ship slow down and hover above a flat area surrounded by low hills. The cargo door opened with a loud hiss. Cold air rushed into the ship, even through his environment suit. His breath fogged the inside of his helmet. See you in 3 days, he said to the empty cargo hold, and jumped out. The ship flew away quickly, leaving him alone on the dead moon. The silence was complete, except for his own breathing and the quiet hum of his suit's life support system. He could see his breath in small puffs of vapor that disappeared quickly in the thin air. Wu Jin looked around at his landing site. Rocks everywhere. Some as small as his fist, others as big as buildings. Patches of dirty ice filled the spaces between rock formations. In the distance, he could see what looked like steam rising from several spots. That was interesting. Steam meant heat, and heat meant energy he could use. Most students would start gathering rocks and ice right away. They would try to build walls to block the wind and cold. They would focus on staying warm and dry until the test ended. Basic survival thinking. But Wu Jin was not most students. He was human, and humans did not just survive. They explored, they understood, and then they built something better than what existed before. He pulled out his tablet and began making notes. The gravity on Kappa 9 was about 80% of Earth normal. That was good. It meant he could move heavy objects more easily than at home. The atmosphere was thin but breathable with his suit's help. The temperature was cold but not deadly. More importantly, he began to see resources that other species might miss. The rocks were not all the same. Some were dark and heavy, probably iron ore. Others were lighter with crystals inside, maybe quartz or other silicates. The dirty ice was not just water. He could see different colors and textures that suggested mineral content. Those steam vents meant geothermal activity underground. Instead of starting construction immediately, Wu Jin began walking. He marked his landing site with a small flag made from his emergency cloth, then started exploring in a spiral pattern. Every 100 steps, he stopped to take samples and make notes. Rock types, ice composition, wind patterns, temperature changes. After 2 hours of walking, he had covered nearly 5 square kilometers. He found 6 different types of rock, 3 different kinds of ice, including some that was almost pure water and some that contained sulfur compounds. The geothermal vents were clustered in 2 main areas, suggesting underground heat sources. Most interesting of all, he found what looked like a dried riverbed. It was just a shallow depression now, but the smooth stones and curved shape told him that water had flowed here once. That meant this area had been warmer in the past. It also meant there might be sedimentary deposits with useful minerals. By the end of his first day, Wu Jin had mapped most of his assigned area. He had not built any shelter yet. He had spent the day learning everything he could about his environment. Other students were probably already huddled in basic rock shelters, trying to stay warm. Wu Jin was planning something much more ambitious. He found a spot near one of the geothermal vent clusters. The ground was slightly warmer here and there, was good access to different types of rocks and ice. The old riverbed ran nearby, giving him easy access to sand and small stones. Hills on two sides would protect against the worst winds. As night fell, Wu Jin made a basic camp. He stacked rocks to create a windbreak and used his emergency blanket to trap heat from the geothermal vents. It was not comfortable, but it kept him alive and warm enough to think. He spent the cold night hours planning, not just a shelter, but a complete survival system. He sketched designs on his tablet by the light of his suit's helmet lamp. He calculated load weights and thermal efficiency. He planned construction sequences and resource allocation. By morning, Wu Jin had a plan that would either make him the most successful student in academy history or get him laughed out of school. The plan started with understanding what he really had to work with. The iron ore rocks could be processed into metal with enough heat. The geothermal vents provided that heat. The quartz and silicate rocks could be turned into glass and insulation materials. The different types of ice could provide not just water, but chemical compounds for basic manufacturing processes. Most importantly, Wu Jin realized that he was not just building a shelter, he was building a foundation for something much bigger. On his second day, he began serious resource collection. Instead of gathering random rocks and ice, he selected specific materials based on his analysis. He used a flat stone as a sledge to drag heavy loads back to his construction site. His environment suit made him strong enough to move rocks that would have been impossible to handle on Earth. He also began basic processing. Using focused sunlight reflected through pieces of clear ice, he could reach high enough temperatures to begin extracting metals from ore. It was slow work, but by the end of the second day, he had small amounts of refined iron and other useful metals. The geothermal vents became his workshop. He built stone channels to direct hot water and steam where he needed them. He created simple tools by shaping metal pieces on hot rocks. He even began making basic glass by melting sand and silicates in the hottest vent areas. Other species would look at Kappa 9 and see a dead rock. Humans looked at the same moon and saw a hardware store. By the end of his second day, Wu Jin had not built a shelter yet, but he had created the tools and processed materials to build something amazing. He had learned to use every resource the moon offered. He had turned a survival situation into an engineering project. That night, as he rested in his improved camp, Wu Jin thought about what Professor Velthar had said. Humans were pack animals who could not succeed alone, primitive beings who relied on group cooperation because they were too simple to work independently. Professor Velthar was wrong about humans needing group cooperation to succeed, but he was also wrong about something else. The professor thought individual achievement was better than group cooperation. He did not understand that humans were not just good at working together, they were good at working alone, too. And when humans worked alone, they did not just try to survive, they tried to excel. Wu Jin fell asleep planning his construction schedule for day 3. He was going to build something that would change how the galaxy thought about human engineering, not because he had help from other humans, but because human curiosity and creativity could turn any environment into an opportunity. Tomorrow, the real construction would begin. As he drifted off to sleep, Wu Jin wondered how his three friends were doing. Sora was probably designing something elegant and beautiful. Jinho was probably building machines from scrap materials. Hana was probably finding ways to make the dead moon bloom with life. Each of them alone, but each of them thinking like the engineers Dean Morgax had told them to be. Professor Velthar was about to learn what happened when humans stopped trying to meet low expectations and started showing what they could really do. Dawn on the third day brought clear skies and steady sunlight. Wu Jin woke up warm and rested in his improved shelter. The geothermal heating system he had built the night before worked perfectly. Hot water from the underground vents flowed through stone channels he had carved, warming the air inside his rock windbreak. But staying warm was just the beginning. Today he would start building something that Professor Velthar never expected: to see on a dead moon. Wu Jin began by expanding his workshop area. He had learned that the geothermal vents produced different temperatures in different locations. Some were perfect for melting metals. Others were good for heating water or drying materials. The hottest vent reached almost 800 degrees Celsius, hot enough for serious metalworking. He built a simple but effective smelting setup using flat stones as platforms and curved rocks as channels to direct heat. By carefully controlling airflow with stone barriers, he could reach the temperatures needed to extract pure metals from the ore he had collected. The work was slow and required patience. Wu Jin had to break down iron ore into small pieces, then heat it gradually to separate the metal from the rock. But after several hours, he had produced his first small ingots of pure iron. The metal was rough and needed more processing, but it was real iron that he could shape into tools. While the smelting operation ran, Wu Jin worked on other projects. He had discovered that some of the ice formations contained interesting chemical compounds. By melting different types of ice separately and collecting the water, he could create solutions with different properties. Some were acidic and could etch metal. Others were basic and could neutralize acids or clean surfaces. The most exciting discovery came when he mixed water from two different ice sources. The combination created a solution that could dissolve certain types of rock very quickly. This gave him a way to shape stone without using metal tools. He could carve precise channels and joints by painting the solution onto rock and waiting for it to work. By midday, Wu Jin had transformed his simple campsite into something that looked like a primitive factory. Stone channels carried hot water to different work areas. Metal ingots cooled on flat rocks. Glass formed in the hottest vents, where he had placed mixtures of sand and minerals. Chemical solutions bubbled in containers made from shaped stone. The factory was producing everything he needed for advanced construction. More importantly, it was producing materials that no other student on Kappa 9 would have access to. While they were stacking rocks and hoping their shelters would not fall down, Wu Jin was creating the building blocks for something much more sophisticated. His next challenge was making tools. The basic academy kit included one small knife, but that was not enough for major construction work. Using his refined iron and the stone-shaping chemical, Wu Jin began crafting a complete tool set. First, he made a hammer by shaping iron around a stone handle. The hammer let him forge other pieces of iron into more complex shapes. Next came chisels for detailed stonework, clamps for holding pieces together while they cooled, and measuring tools for precise construction. The most important tool was a simple but effective drill. By heating an iron rod and shaping one end into a spiral point, he could bore holes through stone and metal. The drill worked by hand power, but it let him create precise joints and connections between different materials. With proper tools, Wu Jin could work much faster and with much better results. By late afternoon, he had produced enough processed materials and specialized tools to begin serious construction. But he was not ready to build his shelter yet. He had one more innovation to complete. The innovation was power generation. Wu Jin had noticed that the geothermal vents produced steady steam at predictable temperatures. Steam was just water vapor under pressure, and pressure could do work. If he could capture and direct that steam, he could create a simple but effective power system. Using his new tools, Wu Jin carved a series of connected channels in the rock near the hottest vent. The channels formed a closed loop that would carry steam from the vent through a work area and back to the vent to be reheated. The steam flow would not be powerful enough to run heavy machinery, but it could power small devices and provide consistent heat for various processes. To test the steam power system, Wu Jin built a simple mechanical device. It was basically a wheel with paddles that turned when steam hit them. The turning wheel could operate other mechanisms, like a bellows for his forge, or a grinding stone for processing materials, or a pump for moving water to different locations. When he activated the steam power system for the first time, Wu Jin felt a deep satisfaction. The wheel turned smoothly and steadily. The steam flow was constant and reliable. He had just created the first mechanical power system on Kappa 9 using nothing but rocks, ice, and human engineering knowledge. As evening approached, Wu Jin reviewed his progress. In 3 days, he had gone from a basic survival situation to operating a complete industrial workshop. He could produce refined metals, shaped stone, glass, chemicals, and mechanical power. He had tools for precision work and systems for mass production. Most importantly, he had proven something that Professor Velthar did not understand about humans. They did not just adapt to their environment. They transformed their environment to serve their needs. Given any set of resources, a human engineer would find ways to turn those resources into something better. But Wu Jin was not finished yet. The steam power system was just the foundation for his next project. Tomorrow, he would begin construction of the shelter itself, and that shelter would demonstrate capabilities that no alien professor expected from a primitive species. That night, Wu Jin expanded his sleeping area using his new construction techniques. He carved precise joints in stone blocks using his chemical solutions. He fitted the blocks together with metal clamps forged in his workshop. He created a heating system that used steam power to circulate warm water through stone channels under his sleeping platform. The result was not just warmer and more comfortable than his previous shelter. It was also a working prototype of the construction methods he would use for the main project. Every joint was perfect. Every system worked exactly as designed. Every detail showed the precision that was possible when human creativity met adequate tools and materials. As he fell asleep in his heated shelter, Wu Jin thought about the other students scattered across Kappa 9. They were probably cold and uncomfortable in their basic rock shelters. They were counting the hours until the test ended, and they could return to the academy. Wu Jin was having the time of his life. Tomorrow he would start building something that would make Professor Velthar reconsider everything he thought he knew about human engineering capabilities. Not just a shelter that could keep someone alive for 7 days, but a structure that demonstrated what humans could accomplish when they stopped trying to meet low expectations and started showing their true potential. the galaxy was about to learn that humans did not just survive in harsh environments. They thrived in them. They turned challenges into opportunities and obstacles into resources. They built things that lasted, worked perfectly, and exceeded every reasonable expectation. Professor Velthar wanted to see basic survival skills. He was going to see advanced engineering that would change how aliens thought about human capabilities forever. The fourth day began with Wu Jin standing at the edge of his construction site, watching steam rise from his makeshift industrial complex. The tools were ready, the materials were processed and waiting, the power systems hummed quietly in the background. Everything he had built over the past 3 days had led to this moment. It was time to build his shelter. But Wu Jin had already decided that shelter was too small a word for what he had planned. What he was about to construct would be a complete living space that demonstrated every aspect of human engineering philosophy. Comfort, efficiency, beauty, and innovation all working together in perfect harmony. The foundation came first. Using his stone-cutting chemicals and precision tools, Wu Jin began carving a foundation platform from the solid rock beneath his construction site. This was not just a flat surface to build on. The foundation included channels for water flow, spaces for utility systems, and anchor points for the structure above. The foundation also connected directly to the geothermal vent system. Wu Jin carved careful channels that would bring heated water up through the foundation and into the living space above. The system would provide both heating and hot water for daily use. No other student on Kappa 9 would have anything close to this level of comfort. While the foundation work progressed, Wu Jin began producing the materials he would need for the walls and roof. The walls would not be simple stacked stones like most survival shelters. Instead, he planned to create engineered stone blocks with perfect joints and integrated utility spaces. Each wall block was a small masterpiece of engineering. Wu Jin used his chemical solutions to carve precise shapes from the best stone materials he had found. The blocks included channels for hot water circulation, spaces for electrical systems, and decorative elements that would make the finished walls beautiful to look at. The stone blocks also demonstrated an important human engineering principle: redundancy. Each block could support more weight than it would ever need to carry. Each joint was stronger than necessary. If part of the system failed, other parts could take over the load. Human engineers always built things to work perfectly, then made them even stronger just to be safe. Creating enough stone blocks for the entire structure took most of the fourth day. But while his hands were busy with cutting and shaping, Wu Jin's mind was working on the next phase of construction. The walls were just the beginning. The real innovations would come with the roof, the interior systems, and the finishing details. By evening, Wu Jin had completed the foundation and produced all the materials needed for the wall construction. The foundation platform was perfectly level and included all the utility connections he would need. The stone blocks were uniform in size and shape, with joints that would fit together like puzzle pieces. The fifth day brought the most satisfying part of any construction project: assembly. Wu Jin began placing the first course of wall blocks on the foundation. Each block settled into place with a soft clicking sound as the precisely cut joints came together. No mortar or adhesive was needed. The blocks held themselves in position through perfect engineering. As the walls rose, Wu Jin connected the utility systems. Hot water from the geothermal system flowed through the channels in the foundation and up into the wall blocks. The heating system was completely integrated into the structure itself. Every part of the building would be warm and comfortable. But heating was just one of the utility systems Wu Jin was installing. He had also created a basic electrical system using principles he had learned in his academy classes. By connecting different metals in the presence of heated water, he could generate small amounts of electrical current. The system would not power heavy machinery, but it could run lights and other small devices. The electrical system used copper wire that Wu Jin had refined from ore deposits he found near the geothermal vents. The wire ran through specially carved channels in the wall blocks, completely hidden but easily accessible for maintenance. At key locations, he installed junction boxes made from shaped stone and metal components. By the end of the 5th day, the walls were complete and all the basics. Utility systems were operational. The structure was already more sophisticated than anything Professor Velthar expected to see on Kappa 9. But Wu Jin was just getting started. The 6th day focused on the roof system. A simple roof would just keep rain and snow out of the living space. Wu Jin's roof would do much more than that. It would collect solar energy, manage water flow, provide additional heating, and include space for specialized equipment. The roof structure used a combination of stone and metal components. Stone provided strength and thermal mass to help regulate temperature. Metal provided flexibility and allowed for complex shapes that would optimize solar collection and water management. The most innovative feature of the roof was its solar collection system. Wu Jin had created simple but effective solar panels using refined silicon and metal components. The panels were not as advanced as the technology used on space stations, but they worked well enough to provide electrical power during the day and store energy in chemical batteries for use at night. The solar panels were integrated into the roof structure in a way that made them both functional and beautiful. Instead of looking like technology bolted onto a building, they looked like natural parts of an elegant design. Form and function working together, a key principle of human engineering. The roof also included a water collection and management system. Wu Jin had calculated the average humidity and precipitation on Kappa 9, then designed gutters and storage tanks to collect every drop of available water. The water would be filtered through beds of sand and activated carbon, then stored in underground tanks carved from solid rock. Installing the roof systems took most of the 6th day. But by evening, Wu Jin had a completely enclosed and weatherproof living space with integrated heating, electrical power, and water systems. The structure was functional and comfortable. It could easily keep someone alive and healthy for much longer than the required 7 days. But Wu Jin was not finished yet. Functional and comfortable were not enough. The structure needed to demonstrate that human engineering was not just about meeting minimum requirements. It was about exceeding every expectation and creating something that inspired admiration and respect. The 7th day would be dedicated to interior finishing and advanced features, systems that went beyond basic survival needs and entered the realm of luxury and convenience. Details that would show Professor Velthar and the entire Academy that human engineering capabilities were limited only by imagination and available resources. As Wu Jin rested that night in his completed structure, he realized that he had already achieved something remarkable. The building around him was warm, well lit, and comfortable. Hot water flowed from taps he had carved from stone and metal. Electric lights provided gentle illumination. The air was clean and fresh thanks to a ventilation system that used natural convection and mechanical fans powered by his steam engine. Most importantly, the structure felt like a home rather than just a shelter. Every detail had been designed with human comfort and aesthetics in mind. The proportions were pleasing to look at. The materials had natural beauty that was enhanced rather than hidden by the construction techniques. The spaces flowed together. in ways that made the interior feel larger and more welcoming than its actual size. This was what human engineering really meant, not just making things that worked, but making things that worked beautifully and made life better for the people who used them, creating structures that were both highly functional and deeply satisfying to experience. Tomorrow, Wu Jin would add the finishing touches that would transform his impressive shelter into something truly extraordinary. Features that would demonstrate human creativity and innovation in ways that no alien professor could ignore or dismiss. Professor Velthar had challenged the humans to build basic survival shelters. He was about to discover what happened when humans decided to build something exceptional instead. The seventh day dawned bright and clear. Wu Jin had less than 48 hours remaining in his test period, but he was not worried about time. His shelter was already complete and fully functional. Everything from this point forward would be about showing the true scope of human engineering capabilities. He began the day by testing all his integrated systems. The heating worked perfectly, keeping every room at a comfortable temperature despite the cold morning air outside. The electrical system provided steady power to his lighting and the small devices he had built. Fresh water flowed from multiple taps throughout the structure. The ventilation system kept the air clean and fresh, but these were just the basic systems. Today, Wu Jin would add advanced features that would transform his shelter from impressive to extraordinary. The first advanced system was environmental control. The basic heating kept the shelter warm, but Wu Jin wanted precise temperature, control in different areas for different purposes. He installed a network of adjustable vents and dampers that could direct heated air exactly where it was needed. A workshop area could be kept cooler for metalworking. A sleeping area could be kept warmer for comfort. A food storage area could be kept at the ideal temperature for preservation. The environmental control system used a combination of mechanical and automated controls. Simple mechanical thermostats opened and closed vents based on temperature. More sophisticated controls used his electrical system to operate fans and pumps that moved heated air and water to different locations. The result was a climate control system that rivaled the technology used on advanced space stations. Next came the water management upgrades. Basic fresh water was good, but Wu Jin added hot water circulation, water pressure regulation, and even a primitive shower system. He carved a shower area from solid rock with carefully angled surfaces that directed water flow and drainage. The shower connected to his hot water system and included pressure controls that provided a comfortable water flow. The water pressure system used an elevated storage tank combined with a steam-powered pump. The pump lifted water from his main storage areas to the elevated tank during the day when his steam engine was running at full capacity. Gravity provided water pressure throughout the day and night, while the pump maintained the supply in the elevated tank. But the most impressive water feature was what Wu Jin privately called his luxury suite. Using his most advanced stone carving techniques, he created a small bathing pool fed by hot water from the geothermal system. The pool was carved from a single piece of stone, with smooth, curved surfaces that were beautiful to look at and comfortable to use. The bathing pool demonstrated several important human engineering principles. First, it showed that humans did not just solve problems, they solved them elegantly. The pool was not just functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. Second, it showed that humans understood the psychological importance of comfort and relaxation. A hot bath after a hard day of work was not just a luxury, it was a necessity for long-term mental health and productivity. While the water systems took shape, Wu Jin worked on his electrical upgrades. His basic electrical system provided lighting and power for small devices. The upgraded system included electrical outlets throughout the shelter, improved lighting with adjustable brightness controls, and power distribution that could handle multiple devices simultaneously. The electrical upgrades also included a primitive but effective communication system. Using principles of radio transmission that he had learned at the academy, Wu Jin built a basic transmitter and receiver that could communicate with other electronic devices over short distances. The system was not powerful enough to reach the academy, but it could detect and communicate with other similar devices on Kappa 9. This meant that if his three friends had built similar communication systems, they could potentially contact each other and coordinate their efforts. The test rules prohibited direct cooperation, but they did not prohibit communication or information sharing. Wu Jin activated his communication system and began broadcasting a simple identification signal. To his delight, he almost immediately received responses from 3 other locations on Kappa 9. Sora, Jinho, and Hana were all alive and apparently thriving. More importantly, their response signals suggested that they had also built sophisticated electronic systems. The 4 humans were not just surviving their individual tests, they were all excelling beyond expectations. The communication system allowed Wu Jin to coordinate with his friends without violating the test rules. They could share information about resources, weather conditions, and construction techniques. They could warn each other about potential hazards or unexpected opportunities. Most importantly, they could provide moral support and encouragement during the challenging final phase of the test. But the advanced systems were not just about comfort and convenience. Wu Jin also focused on efficiency and sustainability. His shelter was designed to operate indefinitely using only the resources available on Kappa 9. The geothermal system would never run out of energy. The water collection and recycling systems could provide fresh water indefinitely. The solar panels would continue producing electricity as long as the moon's sun continued shining. Sustainability also meant maintainability. Every system in the shelter was designed to be repaired or replaced using tools and materials that could be produced on Kappa 9. Wu Jin had deliberately avoided using any components that would require outside resources or specialized manufacturing. A human could live in this shelter for years, maintaining and upgrading the systems using only local resources and human engineering knowledge. By evening of the 7th day, Wu Jin's shelter had become something unprecedented in the history of the Galactic Engineering Academy. It was not just a survival shelter, but a complete living environment that demonstrated mastery of multiple engineering disciplines: architecture, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical processing, and materials science all working together in perfect integration. The structure included heated living spaces, hot and cold running water, electric lighting and power, environmental controls, communication systems, food preparation areas, workshop spaces, and luxury amenities. That would be impressive even on an advanced space station. All of this built from raw materials found on a dead moon, using nothing but human knowledge and determination. But Wu Jin was not finished yet. The 8th and final day would be dedicated to the details that would make his creation truly extraordinary. Artistic elements that would show that human engineering was not just about function, but also about beauty. Innovations that would demonstrate human creativity and imagination. Features that would make Professor Velthar and every other alien at the Academy reconsider their assumptions about human capabilities. As he settled in for his 7th night on Kappa 9, Wu Jin reflected on what he had accomplished. A week ago, he had been just another student struggling to prove that humans belonged at the Academy. Tonight, he was living in a structure that represented the best of human engineering tradition. The shelter around him was warm, comfortable, and beautiful. Every system worked perfectly. Every detail reflected careful planning and expert execution. The structure was not just a testament to his individual skills, but to the accumulated knowledge and wisdom of human civilization. Tomorrow would bring the final touches that would complete his masterpiece. But tonight, Wu Jin allowed himself a moment of pride. He had taken Professor Velthar's challenge and turned it into an opportunity to showcase the full potential of human engineering. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were not primitive mammals trying to play with advanced technology. They were master engineers who could take any challenge and turn it into an opportunity for innovation and excellence. Professor Velthar had wanted to see basic survival skills. He was going to see engineering that would change the Academy's understanding of human capabilities forever. The 8th and final day of construction began with Wu Jin standing in the main room of his completed shelter, drinking hot coffee made from processed roots he had discovered near the geothermal vents. The coffee was not as good as what he could get at the Academy, but it was hot, caffeinated, and made from materials he had found and processed himself on a supposedly lifeless moon. That coffee represented something important about human engineering philosophy. Humans did not just solve the basic problems of survival. They solved the problems that made life worth living. With all the essential systems complete and tested, Wu Jin could focus on the details that would transform his impressive shelter into something truly extraordinary. These final touches would demonstrate aspects of human creativity that no alien professor expected to see in a survival situation. He began with the workshop area. Every human engineer needed a space for building, repairing, and improving the tools and systems they used. Wu Jin's workshop included workbenches carved from solid stone, tool storage systems made from shaped metal and stone, and specialized equipment for different types of work. The workshop's centerpiece was a multi-purpose machine tool that could function as a lathe, drill press, grinder, and milling machine. The tool was powered by his steam engine and built entirely from materials found on Kappa 9. It was not as precise or powerful as the equipment available at the Academy, but it was sophisticated enough to produce complex metal and stone components with excellent accuracy. The workshop also included a complete set of measuring and testing instruments. Wu Jin had created calipers, rulers, levels, squares, and gauges using refined metals and careful craftsmanship. These tools allowed him to work with precision and consistency that would be impossible with improvised equipment. But the workshop was not just about functionality. Wu Jin had arranged the tools and equipment in ways that were pleasing to look at and efficient to use. The storage systems kept everything organized and easily accessible. The work surfaces were at comfortable heights for different types of tasks. The lighting was positioned to eliminate shadows and provide clear visibility for detailed work. Next, Wu Jin turned his attention to what he called the comfort systems. These were features that went beyond basic survival needs and entered the realm of luxury and convenience. They demonstrated that human engineering was not just about meeting minimum requirements, but about creating environments where people could thrive and be happy. The first comfort system was food preparation and storage. Wu Jin had built a complete kitchen using stone countertops, metal sinks, and a cooking system that used both geothermal heat and electrical power. The kitchen included storage areas that maintained different temperatures for different types of food preservation. It even included a small area for growing fresh vegetables using artificial lighting and hydroponic techniques. The food systems demonstrated human understanding of nutrition and health. Humans did not just eat to survive, they ate for pleasure and social bonding. A good meal was as important for psychological health as it was for physical health. By creating a kitchen that could produce varied and delicious meals, Wu Jin was showing that human engineering considered the complete human experience. The next comfort system was entertainment and relaxation. Wu Jin had carved a comfortable seating area with chairs and tables that were ergonomically designed for human body proportions. The seating area included good lighting for reading, comfortable temperatures for relaxation, and acoustic properties that made conversation and music sound pleasant. The entertainment system included a primitive but effective audio system that could play music stored in electronic memory. Wu Jin had also created games and puzzles carved from stone and metal. These were not just time killers, but mental exercises that helped maintain psychological health during long periods of isolation. But the most impressive comfort feature was what Wu Jin called his observation deck. He had carved a raised platform with large windows that provided spectacular views of the surrounding landscape. The observation deck was heated and comfortable, with seating arranged to take advantage of the best views. It was a place for contemplation, inspiration, and connection with the natural world. The observation deck demonstrated something important about human psychology. Humans needed beauty and inspiration to maintain mental health. They needed connection with something larger than themselves. They needed spaces that lifted their spirits and reminded them of the wonder and majesty of the universe. As the day progressed, Wu Jin added artistic and decorative elements throughout his shelter. He carved decorative patterns into stone surfaces, created metal sculptures and ornaments, and arranged lighting to highlight the most beautiful features of his construction. The decorations were not just random ornaments, but carefully chosen designs that enhanced the functionality and beauty of each space. The artistic elements demonstrated that human engineering was not just about solving technical problems. It was also about creating beauty and meaning. Humans understood that the environments they built shaped their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. A beautiful space inspired creativity and happiness. An ugly space could crush the human spirit, even if it met all basic functional requirements. By afternoon, Wu Jin was working on his most ambitious final project, a complete environmental ecosystem. Using principles he had learned from Hana's environmental science studies, he created a small greenhouse space that could support plant and animal life using only the resources available on Kappa 9. The ecosystem included soil beds made from processed organic materials he had discovered in ice formations. It included lighting systems that provided the full spectrum of light needed for photosynthesis. It included water circulation systems that maintained proper humidity and nutrient levels. Most impressively, it included air purification systems that used living plants to maintain optimal atmospheric conditions. The ecosystem was not just a technical achievement, but a philosophical statement. Humans did not just survive in harsh environments. They brought life to lifeless places. They took dead worlds and made them bloom with beauty and vitality. They carried the spark of life and growth wherever they went in the galaxy. As evening approached on his final day, Wu Jin completed the last details of his masterpiece. Every system was tested and optimized. Every surface was cleaned and polished. Every component was adjusted for peak performance. The shelter was not just complete, but perfect. Standing in the main room of his creation, Wu Jin realized that he had built something that exceeded even his own expectations. The structure around him was not just a shelter, but a complete living environment that demonstrated mastery of every aspect of human engineering knowledge. It was functional, beautiful, sustainable, and inspiring. More importantly, it was uniquely human. No other species in the galaxy would have approached the challenge the same way. Other species might have built shelters that were larger or stronger or more efficient in specific ways. But only humans would have built something that addressed every aspect of intelligent life: physical needs, psychological needs, aesthetic needs, and spiritual needs. The shelter demonstrated human engineering philosophy in its purest form. Humans did not just build things that worked. They built things that enhanced life and created meaning. They did not just solve problems. They turned problems into opportunities for innovation and growth. They did not just survive in harsh environments. They thrived in them and made them better places for all life to flourish. As Wu Jin prepared for his final night on Kappa 9, he thought about Professor Velthar and the evaluation that would come tomorrow. The professor had challenged the humans to build basic survival shelters. Instead, Wu Jin had built a masterpiece that would force the entire galaxy to reconsider their assumptions about human capabilities. Tomorrow would bring recognition and probably shock from the Academy. But tonight, Wu Jin simply enjoyed the satisfaction of perfect achievement. He had taken an impossible challenge and turned it into a triumph. He had proven that human engineering was limited only by imagination and determination. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could accomplish when they stopped trying to meet low expectations and started showing their true potential. The transport ship appeared as a small dot against the pale morning sky of Kappa 9. Wu Jin watched it approach from the observation deck of his completed shelter, drinking his morning coffee and feeling completely relaxed. His 72 hours were almost up, but he was in no hurry to leave. He had grown comfortable in the home he had built on this supposedly lifeless moon. The ship grew larger as it approached, and Wu Jin could see through its viewing windows that it carried more passengers than usual. Professor Velthar was there, of course. His crystalline form was unmistakable even at a distance. But Dean Morgax was with him, along with several other faculty members that Wu Jin did not recognize. They had come to see the results of the survival test. They expected to find basic shelters built by desperate students who had barely managed to stay alive for 3 days. Professor Velthar especially expected to find evidence that humans were not capable of advanced engineering without help from more sophisticated species. They were about to get the surprise of their academic careers. The ship landed in the flat area where Wu Jin had first arrived, about 200 meters from his construction site. As the passengers disembarked, Wu Jin could hear their voices carried on the thin morning air. They were talking in the formal academic language that professors used when discussing research results. The other test sites showed exactly what we expected, Professor Velthar was saying to his colleagues. Basic rock shelters with minimal functionality. The granite students performed adequately. The flicker students showed typical creativity with limited resources. The Altarian students demonstrated their usual systematic approach. And the humans? Asked Dean Morgax. The humans will provide valuable data about the limitations of primitive engineering approaches, Professor Velthar replied confidently. I expect we will find evidence that supports my theories about species-based engineering capabilities. Some species are simply better suited for advanced technical work than others. The group of professors began walking toward Wu Jin's test site. As they crested the low hill that separated the landing area from the construction zone, their voices fell silent. Wu Jin watched from his observation deck as the professors stopped walking and stared at what lay before them. Even from a distance, he could see their body language change from casual academic interest to complete shock and disbelief. What they saw was not a basic survival shelter. What they saw was a complete residential complex that looked like it belonged on an advanced space station rather than a dead moon. The main structure rose 3 stories above the ground, with clean lines and elegant proportions that were pleasing to look at from every angle. Solar panels integrated seamlessly into the roof design gleamed in the morning sunlight. Steam rose gently from various vents, indicating active geothermal systems. Large windows reflected the landscape and suggested comfortable interior spaces. Surrounding the main building were carefully landscaped areas with stone pathways, decorative water features, and what appeared to be growing vegetation. Workshop. Buildings and storage areas were arranged in a pattern that was both functional and aesthetically pleasing. The entire complex looked like it had been designed by master architects and built by expert craftsmen. Professor Velthar stood frozen. For several minutes, his crystalline body refracting sunlight in patterns that suggested extreme agitation. The other professors walked slowly around the perimeter of the complex, examining the construction details and trying to understand what they were seeing. "This is not possible," Professor Velthar finally said. His voice carried clearly in the thin air. "No student could build something like this in 72 hours using only primitive tools and local materials." Dean Morgax approached the main entrance of the building and examined the construction details. The stonework was precise and beautiful. The metal components were carefully crafted and perfectly fitted. The overall design showed mastery of multiple engineering disciplines working in perfect coordination. "Professor Velthar," Dean Morgax called. "I believe we need to speak with the student who built this." Wu Jin descended from his observation deck and walked to the main entrance to meet his evaluators. He was cleaned and well-rested, wearing fresh clothes that he had washed in his hot water system. He looked like someone who had spent a pleasant vacation at a luxury resort rather than someone who had been struggling to survive in a harsh environment. "Good morning, professors," Wu Jin said politely. "Welcome to my survival shelter. Would you like a tour of the facilities?" Professor Velthar approached slowly, his crystalline eyes fixed on Wu Jin with an expression that might have been suspicion or confusion. "Student Wu Jin, please explain what we are seeing here." "You assigned us to build shelters that could keep us alive for 7 days using only materials found on Kappa 9, Wu Jin replied. "This structure meets those requirements. It can keep someone alive indefinitely using renewable energy sources and sustainable resource management." "This is not a shelter," Professor Velthar said. "This is a complete residential facility with advanced systems integration." "Yes, sir. Is there a problem with that?" "You did not specify any maximum limits on what we could build. You only specified the minimum requirement of keeping someone alive for 7 days. Dean Morgax stepped forward. "Student Wu Jin, please show us how these systems work. We need to understand what you have accomplished here." Wu Jin led the group of professors through his creation, explaining each system and demonstrating its capabilities. The geothermal heating and power generation, the solar electrical systems, the water collection, purification, and distribution, the workshop with its precision machine tools, the kitchen with its food preparation and storage capabilities, the communication systems that had allowed coordination with other human students. At each stop, the professors asked detailed technical questions. How had he refined metals from raw ore? How had he created electrical components without advanced manufacturing equipment? How had he achieved such precision in his construction without sophisticated measuring instruments? Wu Jin answered each question completely and honestly. He explained the chemical processes he had used for metal refining, He demonstrated the tools he had created for precision work. He showed them the testing and measuring instruments he had built from basic materials. Most importantly, he explained the human engineering philosophy that had guided every decision. "We do not just try to meet minimum requirements," he said. "We try to excel. We do not just solve problems. We turn problems into opportunities. We do not just survive in harsh environments. We make them better places to live." By the time the tour was complete, the professors were overwhelmed with what they had seen and learned. Every system in Wu Jin's complex was functional, efficient, and elegantly designed. Every component demonstrated mastery of advanced engineering principles. Every detail showed the kind of innovation and creativity that the Academy tried to teach in its most advanced courses. Professor Velthar stood in the main living area of the shelter, looking around at the comfortable furniture, the beautiful decorative elements, the perfectly controlled lighting and temperature. His entire worldview was crumbling around him. "This changes everything we thought we knew about human engineering capabilities," he said quietly. "With respect, Professor," Wu Jin replied, "this does not change anything about human capabilities. Humans have always been capable of this kind of work. What has changed is your understanding of what we can accomplish when we are given the opportunity to show our true potential." Dean Morgax was examining the communication system that Wu Jin had used to coordinate with his fellow human students. "You mentioned that you have been in contact with the other human students. Are their constructions similar to this?" "I believe so," Wu Jin said. "Each of my friends has different specialties and interests. Sora focuses on architectural design. Jinho specializes in mechanical systems. Ha-Na works with biological and environmental systems. I expect their shelters reflect their individual strengths while meeting the same high standards of functionality and comfort." Professor Velthar turned to face Wu Jin directly. "Student Wu Jin, I owe you an apology. I believe that humans were a primitive species that required assistance from more advanced civilizations to accomplish anything significant. You have proven that my beliefs were completely wrong." "Thank you, Professor. But I did not build this to prove you wrong. I built it because this is what human engineers do when we are presented with a challenge. We find ways to exceed every expectation and create something better than anyone thought was possible." The professors spent several more hours examining every aspect of Wu Jin's creation, taking detailed notes and asking technical questions. By the time they were ready to leave, they had documented an engineering achievement that would reshape the Academy's understanding of human capabilities. As the transport ship prepared for departure, Professor Velthar approached Wu Jin for a private conversation. "Student Wu Jin, I must ask you something. Did you really build all of this yourself in just 72 hours?" "Yes, sir. Every component was designed, fabricated, and installed by me alone, using only the materials I found on Kappa 9 and the tools I created from those materials." 3 days after the evaluation on Kappa 9, Wu Jin sat in the main auditorium of the Galactic Engineering Academy, alongside Sora, Jinho, and Ha-Na. The four friends had been reunited after their individual tests, and each had stories to tell about their remarkable achievements on the dead moon. Sora had built what she called a architectural sculpture, a shelter that was as beautiful as it was functional, with flowing curves and artistic elements that turned basic survival into an aesthetic experience. Jinho had created a mechanical workshop that could manufacture precision tools and components from raw materials. Ha-Na had transformed her test area into a thriving ecosystem where plants and microorganisms worked together to create a sustainable, living environment. Each human had approached the challenge differently, but all four had produced results that exceeded every expectation and redefined what was possible with limited resources and basic tools. Now they waited to hear the official results of their evaluations. The auditorium was packed with students and faculty from across the galaxy. Word had spread quickly that something unprecedented had happened during the human survival tests. Everyone wanted to learn what the supposedly primitive species had accomplished on Kappa 9. Dean Morgax stepped up to the speaking platform. His heavy footsteps echoed through the silent auditorium. Behind him, a large display screen showed images from the 4 human test sites. Even as still photographs, the structures were impressive. Together, they represented a revolution in thinking about individual engineering capabilities. Students and faculty of the Galactic Engineering Academy, Dean Morgax began, we are here today to discuss the results of the most remarkable survival test in our institution's history. The dean touched a control panel, and the display screen showed detailed images of Wu Jin's complex. The professors and students in the audience made sounds of amazement in dozens of different languages. The crystalline beings chimed like wind instruments. The granite people rumbled like distant thunder. The flicker beings buzzed like excited insects. Student Wu Jin was assigned to build a basic shelter that could keep him alive for 7 days, Dean Morgax continued. Instead, he constructed a complete residential facility with integrated power generation, water management, food production, communications, and recreational amenities. Using only materials found on the test site and tools he created himself, he built something that rivals the living quarters on advanced space stations. The screen changed to show Sora's architectural creation. The structure seemed to flow like water frozen in stone and metal, with graceful curves and elegant proportions that were beautiful from every angle. Student Sora created what can only be described as functional art. Her shelter demonstrates that human engineering considers not just efficiency and durability, but also beauty and inspiration. She proved that survival structures can feed the soul as well as protect the body. Next came images of Jinho's mechanical workshop. The pictures showed precision tools, manufacturing equipment, and mechanical systems that looked like they belonged in advanced industrial facilities. Student. Jinho built a complete manufacturing facility capable of producing sophisticated tools and components. His workshop demonstrates human ability to create industrial capability from nothing but raw materials and knowledge. Finally, the screen showed Ha-Na's ecological paradise. What had been lifeless rock and ice had been transformed into a green space where plants grew in carefully designed gardens and small streams carried fresh water through living landscapes. Student Ha-Na accomplished something that our xenobiology experts claimed was impossible. She created a sustainable ecosystem on a dead moon, bringing life to a world that had never known living organisms. Dean Morgax paused to let the images and information sink in. The auditorium was completely silent. Students and faculty were trying to process what they were seeing and what it meant for their understanding of engineering capabilities. Professor Velthar rose from his seat in the faculty section. His crystalline body caught the auditorium lights and cast rainbow patterns on the walls around him. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the large space. I must make a public statement, Professor Velthar announced. I assigned this survival test because I believed it would demonstrate the limitations of human engineering capabilities. I expected the human students to struggle with basic construction and resource management. I believed they would prove that some species are simply better suited for advanced technical work than others. The professor paused, his crystal form shimmering with what looked like embarrassment. I was completely wrong. The human students did not just meet the basic requirements of the test. They redefined what those requirements could mean. They showed engineering capabilities that exceed what I believed was possible for individual students working with primitive tools and limited resources. Murmurs of conversation rippled through the auditorium. This was unprecedented. Professor Velthar was known for his rigid beliefs about species hierarchies and his conviction that crystalline beings represented the pinnacle of galactic engineering evolution. For him to publicly admit error was shocking. More importantly, Professor Velthar continued, the human students taught me something fundamental about engineering philosophy. They showed me that true engineering excellence is not just about solving problems efficiently. It is about solving problems creatively, beautifully, and in ways that improve life for everyone involved. The professor turned to look directly at the four human students. Students Woojin, Sora, Jinho, and Hana, I formally apologize for underestimating your species and your individual capabilities. You have earned the highest grades in Academy history, and more importantly, you have earned my respect and admiration. Applause filled the auditorium. Not just polite academic applause, but genuine enthusiasm from students and faculty who recognized they had witnessed something historic. The four humans had not just passed a difficult test. They had changed how the galaxy thought about engineering potential and species capabilities. Dean Morgax raised his hands for silence. The achievements of our human students raise important questions about how we evaluate engineering capabilities and how we structure our academic programs. Based on what we have learned, the Academy will be making significant changes to our curriculum and our approach to cross-species education. The Dean touched his control panel again, and the screen showed a new announcement. Effective immediately, students Woojin, Sora, Jinho, and Hana are invited to join the Advanced Engineering Program previously reserved for senior students from what we considered the most technically sophisticated species. They will also be invited to participate in graduate-level research projects and to collaborate with our most senior faculty members. More applause echoed through the auditorium, but Dean Morgax was not finished. Additionally, the Academy will be sending research teams to study the structures built on Kappa 9. These constructions will be preserved as permanent research facilities and as examples of individual engineering achievement. They represent a new standard for what can be accomplished. With creativity, determination, and advanced technical knowledge, the implications were staggering. The four human students had not just earned academic recognition, they had created permanent monuments to human engineering capability that would inspire students for generations to come. After the formal presentations ended, the four friends gathered outside the auditorium to process what had happened. They were surrounded by students and faculty from dozens of species, all wanting to ask questions and learn more about human engineering techniques. I can't believe this is real, Sora said quietly to her friends. 3 weeks ago, half the professors thought we didn't belong here. Now they want to study our work and learn from our methods. It feels strange, Jinho agreed, but also good. We proved that humans can compete with anyone in the galaxy when we're given a fair chance. To show what we can do, Hana was reading messages on her tablet from research institutions across the galaxy. I'm getting requests to collaborate on ecological restoration projects. Apparently what I did on Kappa 9 has applications for terraforming dead worlds and creating sustainable environments on space stations. Wu Jin looked around at the mixed groups of students who were discussing engineering techniques and sharing ideas across species lines. This is what the academy should be like. Everyone learning from everyone else. Everyone contributing their unique strengths to solve problems that no single species could solve alone. Professor Velthar approached the group, moving slowly and carefully. His usual commanding presence seemed softer somehow, more humble. "Students," he said formally, "I wanted to speak with you privately. What you accomplished on Kappa 9 was remarkable not just for its technical excellence, but for what it revealed about the diversity of approaches to engineering challenges." The professor paused, choosing his words carefully. "I spent centuries believing that there was one correct way to approach engineering problems, the crystalline way, based on mathematical precision and systematic analysis. You showed me that there are many correct approaches, each with unique strengths and advantages.